What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. We're switching it up a little bit today. I hope you guys had a really great Memorial Day weekend. If you're coming off of a 3-day weekend, I hope it was, first off, restful, and you guys got to do things that you actually enjoy doing. So kick it over to Deshaun. We're going to get into these questions, and today's topic is going to be alongside what these questions are about.
What's one deal breaker in a friendship or relationship that you can't overlook, no matter how close you are?
I would say, truthfully, like just unsufferable, like selfishness. If somebody's just extremely selfish, you know what I mean, or like they just can't see your vantage point or just other vantage points or perspectives. I mean, I think that kind of like omits any type of relationship. It doesn't matter who it is. Like some type of distance has to be created. I know there are so many other things, but just hearing that, I think for me, and I think just in large variety, just a certain level of selfishness, it's just like, man, I can't deal with it.
Yeah. I think that's a great one. I'll use a different one because the one that I feel like I was going to say was kind of aligned with what you were using, but people pleasing in a sense, I think if you're acting out a character, I guess that would be a better way to say it. I think we all know or have friends that are, within their own realm, and we've talked about it plenty of times, but new friend, whether it's a guy or a woman or, in a relationship, I feel like sometimes, some people can get and act different in different ways. And if it's a consistent thing, I don't feel like that's something I want to be around in that aspect. So very much respecting your friends, especially around new people, and giving them that benefit of the doubt of like, bro, like, you and me we're friends first, regardless of what happens. And you just, stay true to yourself. That's really what it comes down to. And I couldn't have that deal broken for me if that was the case. So
absolutely, bro.
What about you, Deshaun?
I would go with those friendship competitions. Like I'm all good for good friendship competition, but like
competing.
A good competition is fun. It's good, but once it started to feel like
that's
all right,
it.
you're starting to keep tallies now, and it's starting to feel weird. And sometimes it's coming off in these jokes, and I'm hearing them. And they're coming in, and I'm not gonna say nothing, but I'm going like, all right, I'm gonna clock you now. I got you.
That's a good one. That's a real good one.
I thought you were leaning more towards like competing physical things, but that makes more sense. Yeah.
Just I think I'm pretty sure women have that with women. Guys have that too. You know what I mean? When you see people competing, or you're like, you see people do stuff or say stuff, or like you notice like, and it's a difference between, I think, just we're speaking on men, we should be inspired from one another. Yeah. I might see you do something, I'm like, bro, I like that. You know what I mean? Or where'd you get that from? Or I like that. Or how'd you go about doing that? Like that's being inspired. But when it's like you did that, now I need to do this. Or you feel it.
There you go.
It's like competing, and it's like, nah, you should never compete with your boys.
Or making jokes based off of their insecurities that you know about them deep down.
Super out. Like,
and it's like, bro, I was just being funny. Like, that's being funny in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Like for sure.
Yeah. I think it comes with the like credibility aspect too, bro. Because again, like we were talking about before the show, that moment to where there's appreciation going behind what the show's about, and like meeting that guy. I don't feel good taking all the credit because it's not what I believe in my heart. So I push it on to Deshaun because he's the one there with me. I was like, bro, Deshaun's the one that does the camera work. He does the soundboard work. Like it takes a lot of time for him to do what it is that he needs to do, and that's just the way I was raised. I think that comes down to like first checking your buddy. No, of course, bro. Like every time I post a picture and it's Deshaun's work, I do my best to make sure that I tag his profile, not because he wants it, but because out of love, bro. Like that's just how I'm raised. Like you always give credit to the credit where it's due, and I can't make any of this happen without y'all. But it makes me feel better when other people see that work, because who knows if that's an opportunity for him to get another gig or something else like that.
For sure.
I enjoyed that question. Number 2, what's a mistake you made that taught you how to move with more intention?
I would guess concrete wise. I mean, I'll keep it very, very simple. But there was a time in my life to where I was very much, driving with a couple of drinks in my body. And for people, it's different ways. Like, it takes something having to happen, or it takes having the self-discipline to just stop doing it. Yeah. And for me, it was just thinking that I was, unbreakable. Like I could do it all. I can do it anytime. I wasn't ever going to get to me. And I got myself into an accident. Luckily, no one was involved. It was just myself running into something. And that alone, I think I was 23 years old. That told me, you need to chill. Like that mistake is what has me here today in terms of anytime I drink more than 2 drinks, I'm Ubering. I don't care how expensive that Uber is. I think that's a great life tip for any type of man that's, in this case, battling with wanting to drive or wanting to drink. it doesn't matter how many drinks you've had or you haven't had. It just takes that one drink to really put you in a place to where not only one, you can hurt somebody, but more importantly, yourself. Why you could get yourself in some real debt if you get pulled over for something like that. Like, I think the lawyer rates nowadays.
10 stacks here.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
not playing out here, bro. Yeah. No,
Yeah. So
that's a fact.
Compared to spending $100 to $150 on an Uber at most, that's what we're talking. It's like, perspective on life is everything. And the intention behind everything that I do now with drinking is if I've gotten to that point, I'll leave my car wherever it's at or take it to a safer spot that's like literally down the road and order my Uber. So that would be mine.
Oh, that's real. That's honest, man. And we're speaking honestly, man. I think something that's happened that creates intention behind it. And I think most guys, it might take it might take a man or a guy to get to a certain point to experience this. But I think just being intentional with women, I think that's something that's, when you're young or you're flowing, you're doing your thing and you're like, man, she'll always be here. You know what I mean? And it's like, all right. It's like, all right, you could keep doing that. And then eventually you look up and it's like, she's gone. And you like, I thought it was gonna. And it's like, that's a moment of like, all right, I got to be intentional now. Or I have to be honest in how I'm maneuvering. You know what I mean? What I'm doing. And I think, I think guys that have had experiences, whether they flown, they just flown, or just whatever they had going on, you get to a place to where it's like, okay, there's maturity that comes in and then intentionality within that. And I think that's something very specific that I think a lot of guys can relate to in regards to like, we know how it is. You know what I mean? You doing your thing, you flowing, you think you just gonna have your way. And it's like, okay, all right. And there are good women out here to where it's like, they can see that and be like, oh yeah, he's playing around.
Yeah, no,
like,
for sure.
You're young,
sure.
so you're just thinking like, you're doing what you're doing. And she's it's I think just guys can understand that have had experience to where it's like, all right, not to say you're not going to still maybe operate in the space of how you operate, but just being more mature about how you do certain things. And that creates intentionality in how you move forward. I think that's something that I think most guys that have had just experiences, they can relate to.
And coming from that space, I think it's like, in this case, it's not a man or an older person. Sometimes it's the woman involved in that.
For sure.
Speaking from experience, it's once you hear that, like, yo, that really hurt my feelings. I mean, the human nature to me of a good person is like, oh shoot, I really, my selfish intentions had something to do with how I made you feel as a person, and that ain't cool. And it's like you said, everyone has it and does it in different shapes and forms, whether it's coworkers, relationships, friends. It don't matter. But I do think in that aspect, sometimes it takes a person that's hurt to deliver that hard message, and you either hit with it and move forward with a different intention and understand that every move you make, in this case with women, is a direct correlation of who you are as a person. And it is selfish. It's a selfish way to act and to move, especially if you're not moving off of honesty and intention.
Absolutely. So. No, for sure.
I'm gonna go with previously. When I was younger, I think I would say I was like somewhat close to a yes man. Not too far on the spectrum of the yes man areas, but I would say like I got myself into some situations where I could have said no.
For sure.
I heard some conversations and held some conversations, and I was like, all right, I'm not feeling this, but like I kind of maintained through it and not listening to that mindset of just like, no, don't even feed into that, and just started listening more than talking and giving my own opinion. I kind of learned how to move now in life now. I just listen.
For sure.
So I listen a lot more than I talk.
Absolutely.
And it really helps me like distinguish what conversations I should be in, what rooms I should be in, the type of people that I'm around. So I'm actually hearing this stuff, and I'm not, it all looks good. Like we're all partying, we're having a great time and things like that. I'm like, something's wrong with this. Like something's wrong with this motherfucker. Like, I got to get you going. Something's going on with you.
Listening helps with discernment, so that's very true.
It's the biggest, I think, trait that people tend to not have nowadays. Like, and I back to like the whole woman aspect, like, in some ways more than not, especially when you get closer to a woman, or in this case being in a relationship with someone for as long as you are, sometimes what you say is not what is heard, and vice versa.
That's true.
If you're being given like direct, let's just say direct feedback that may not be, it's constructive. You're gonna hear something that maybe you didn't want to hear, but it's up to you to either hear it for what it is, or you turn it around in your head and deliver it back to where that wasn't what was actually being said. It was the assumption and the hurt that was coming from it. So I think like that's a great trait and a great point to make, Deshaun, is the fact that sometimes you got to pull yourself out and just listen.
Yeah.
And your opinion doesn't always matter to what, you know, the person is saying, because somebody's walk is different from yours, and it's usually not worth having that conversation in that time for that.
We live in two different worlds.
Yeah.
Number 3, what's a trait you look for in men you keep around you?
What was that again?
What's a trait you look for in men that you keep around you? Like,
for sure.
It's like the opposite of the first question.
Versus friends or...
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say, me personally, I would say unwavering loyalty. Like unwavering loyalty. I think that's like, there's like, I think we're very simple in the sense, like we don't, it does like looks and like where you're at in life and all of that. That doesn't matter.
Nah, bro,
like,
we're simple.
That doesn't matter with men. So it's like, bro, as long as you're loyal and you've shown loyalty, that's all that matters for real. That's literally it. Because love is loyalty.
It is.
So if you're loyal as a man, and it can be seen, through every facet, like you said, like, and just being able to have discernment. So watching how men deal with other people, watching how they did, like what they say and how they operate, and if they're saying things and they're actually doing it, things like that. But all encompassing loyalty, I think for me, that's the big, like that's number one. Because that's how I operate.
Yeah.
And I think that loyalty, being a man of your word, I think all those are one thing. But yeah, unwavering loyalty, that's it.
I like that one. It's funny you mentioned that, because we met, we were at the pool this weekend, and we met one of my, she's in this building, and then we met another guy who just moved in, and they were overhearing a conversation. I just met this dude at the pool. Me and Deshaun we're talking for like 3 hours, and end up, you know, having some drinks with them. And she comes over after, and she's like, it's crazy how easy and simple it is for guys to make friendships. Yeah. And I was just like, it's simple. And she asked, like, how did you meet Deshaun? A bar. What do you mean a bar? Like, we just met at a bar. Like that's how we met. It's like, what do you talk about? Like, how did you introduce yourself? I'm like, it's just simple. Like, you look, you see, you analyze, and you go up. Or like, hey bro, those are nice shoes. For sure. Hey, what's up, bro? What are you up to tonight? Like, where should we hit next? Like,
absolutely.
It's that simple. And I don't think women can understand that. But I think as a man, it's like very powerful, because it opens that door to loyalty, to be very comfortable. And it's like, there's really no reason to look at that differently or to move sideways when it's as easy as just saying, bro, I got a problem. Here's what it is, you know? So, Deshaun, what would you say yours was?
I'm going to have to piggyback with Julian off of this one. I'm going to go with unwavering loyalty, just because it's more than just loyalty itself and, you know, always having someone's back. It's about that fact that you can have uncomfortable conversations and you can be able to get through that effectively as two grown adults, man or female. You can get through that conversation, and you can just move forward from there, and you can get your perspective after, and everything just goes well. Yeah. You know that you have that love for each other. You're loyal to each other. So that connection is just there. So no matter what comes in that comes in between you guys, you can work it out. That's easy. That's nothing. You just nip it in the bud. But if it's not like that, it's always the opposite, and you kind of get a perspective on that, and you know that for sure, that like, hey, this is not going to work out. Yeah. You can stop that early. I like that.
No, for sure.
I agree.
I think that's probably the biggest one to have. I think a big one for me would be a hustle, a grind about a friend. I don't like to be friends with people, or in this case, bring a friend in my friend group that doesn't have a type of grind to their life, regardless of how old you are. I think in that specific case of talking about a guy that can grind his way or work his way up, it doesn't matter about age. It's just a number when it comes to that. But I can't be around somebody that doesn't understand what hard work looks like. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not applying yourself in every aspect of life, I'm not saying you're going to miss a day, whether you're not going to the gym, you're not putting in the work, editing, shooting, whatever. Right. I'm saying, like, admitting those days, but the next day's better. You step up in a specific way.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why I've been very limited with the type of people I surround myself with, especially out here, because it's very easy to get it inside the night club and just that's all it is. Every weekend, boom, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every weekend. But it's a different thing to do something like this and really build something from the ground up. And whether it's, helping build, a specific brand or working on something on your own, I take pride in the friends that I have. That's why, like I said, bro, I'm gonna push out everyone else's work because I'm prideful by the way that you guys work. I'm prideful, like, yo, Julian's really in here doing this on top of making a music video the next day, or working on other things outside his life. Deshaun is coming in here on top of editing photos for his business, on top of waking up at 4 a.m. going to work. Like, I take pride in that, and I will brag about that rather than brag about my achievements and whatnot. So that's exactly why that I want my circle to be something that I'm proud of, because it is a direct reflection of who I am as a person. So
for sure, it's an ecosystem, definitely.
Yeah,
for sure.
Number 4, what's one thing you used to value that doesn't mean anything to you now? It could be something that you just put on a pedestal, but nowadays you're over that. You're moved through it.
Honestly, for me, man, well, it's kind of like a dual thing, and I still care about it, but not to the extent that how I used to basketball. Honestly, like, and I still love it. Don't get me wrong, I still love basketball, but like, I don't really watch it anymore. I'm not as like ingratiated in the sport and how I used to be, and I think that's due to maturity and just like, as you get older, your priorities change, and what you like, what you want to do, what you want to give your time and attention to. So basketball, and even I'll say this, like, I'm gonna always be fresh, dress nice. Like, I like clothes,
the nicest, bro.
But I'm not as, again, ingratiated in like fashion as how I like in shoes, how I used to be when I was younger. That's gonna always be a thing. Don't get me wrong. I like to present myself a certain way, but I'm not as like, I used to really be on the Jordans. I used to really be on like just the release dates. And
there you go.
I used to really be on that younger, and it's like, now I don't like. Dude, I don't know when stuff drops. Like, I don't care. I just know if I like something and I see it, I'm going to get it.
What do you mean? They're at StockX right now. I just went the other day. I was like, dang, there's a lot of Jordans just sitting up there. Yeah. I kid you not, bro. Like, I think the new Jordans that just dropped, they're sitting on StockX, or not StockX, at Shoe Palace. I don't know why I said StockX. Okay. Yeah, they're just sitting at Shoe Palace. I'm like, yeah. I literally show him like, these are new, huh? And the guy was like, oh yeah, these are brand new. Nobody's buying them though. I'm like, bro, it's expensive out here.
It's the time. But yeah, I would say those two for me, man. Yeah.
Hard one. I used to care about like showing up for everything and showing up for everybody in every single way.
That's a good one.
Any way possible I can, I'll break my back to go do it. Nowadays, I realized being on the other end, and I moved out here on my own, and I kind of just had to figure it out myself, and you're not having those connections anymore, and like having to start all over, and you realize like who's in your corner, whether they're with you or not, whether they kind of send a little bit words or not. You realize all of that. So I'm like, just focus on you. Focus on you. Focus on your business. Focus on the things that you got going on for you, because at the end of the day, their day is gonna go. Their life is just gonna move on. So,
and it's not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal.
Yeah, and if you said no, like if they're your boys, they're just gonna be like, all right, bro, get better. Like we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually prioritize friends that don't have to see you every day. Don't have to talk every day, because I'm not one of those people. Yeah, I can be a multi-purpose friend, but I don't want to talk to you every day. Yeah, I don't want to see you every day.
Especially when you're on your grind and your purpose, it's just inevitable. That's probably just not gonna happen. And that's understood. I think men understand that. Like, when you're really on your grind and your purpose, and all your boys are too. You're not gonna just be speaking, or like, it's just not going on like that. You might speak frequently, but it's not gonna be like a everyday. Like, it's just no way it can happen like that.
No, especially if you're good on communication to be like, yo, every day at this time, like we're doing right now, we're getting together. Like, or once a week, we'll get together and do this. Everything after that's a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I
respect it. Let's see, mine would be, dang man, I had one in my head and I literally just blinked right now, because you had said one that I was going to say, which was the shoes and everything. Oh, I would say the perception that people have of me. I used to care so much about that, which kind of ties into what you're saying. But I used to care so much about, like, damn, did I say that right? Am I dressed appropriately? Like, what do people think of me? Am I wearing this right? Am I wearing this right? And I used to care so much. And I think you've noticed it early on in our friendship, where you're just like, bro, now you just, like, it seems like you just wear whatever you want to wear. And in the same aspect, like, my point making is, that's just how I am as a whole entire person now. Like, I'll say things that are coming from the heart, not just like, okay, think of it first, calculate it, make sure it's coming off this way. Like, I used to be just like that early on in my 20s, and you realize that it's just a lot of work. Like you said, it's too much. It's tiring, it's exhausting, and then you try to figure out, you're reading all these books, you're doing all this self-help, you're getting, the help that you need, and it's contradicting, because you want to come out your truest self, but then on the flip side, you're around people and it's just curated to whatever you're doing. And that's why, like, I get what we talk about, because I was in these moments at a certain time of my life, and it's easy to talk about it, but you know, sitting now, I definitely think, you know, this is like my most prime that I've ever been and I've ever felt. And only the reason that I know myself, my truest self, I know what my weak points are. I know what my strengths are, and I can align with that. And I know that I can trust the homies to check me if that's what I needed to have. Absolutely. So, which all three I think would, you know, align well with what a good quality man should look like in that aspect. So
it's positive. Number 5, what's a promise you've made to yourself and refuse to break it?
And I think I've had this since like I was a kid. Like I have to, like, just for me, from a self standpoint, I have to acquire a certain amount of wealth. Like just in regards to like, it has to start with me. Like in regards to like, now I'm not putting an amount on it, but just having real money, like just having a real bag, like, and just to speak very candid, like I've told myself, I'm not like, before I have like, if marriage is in the equation or have a child, I have to have obtained real money. I have to feel that, like, for myself, and then also the legacy. Like I just have to, because like it has to start somewhere. Yeah, it has to start somewhere. And I think for anybody that comes from whatever situation they come from, if you don't come from something, where is it going to start from? When you look at just family wise or whomever, somebody who's obtained finances for the family, somebody did that. Yeah. Somebody told themselves in their mind, like, nah, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna be the one that makes us a millionaires. I'm gonna make, like, if we look at whomever, if we look at Jeff Bezos, if we look at the Rothschilds, if we look at the Waltons who created Walmart, somebody was like, nah, I'm gonna start this for my lineage to where we're gonna be good. We're gonna be good. And that's something that I've told myself, like, since I was like, it has to be me. It has to be me. And I think, you know, certain sacrifices have to be made from that, whether it's relationships, whether it's prolonging parenthood, whatever it is. Like, if you're saying it's going to be with you to start something, right?
You got to give up. You got to give up.
You're going to have to sacrifice something for it. And for me, that's just something that's always been in my, like, it's relished within me to where it's like, nah, I have to get to it. Like, I have to experience certain things just from a life standpoint, but like, nah, the real money has to start with me.
I like that. I respect it a lot.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to go with, I always got to keep grinding. Similar to what you said, I always have to accomplish something. It's money, it's wealth, it's knowledge, it's learning, it's networking, it's people. I have to accomplish something that's actually can take me over to the next level and bring up whoever's behind me. Never be selfish. Whenever I get to that path, I just have to keep doing it.
For sure, until you obtain it.
No, it's very clear and cut. That's what I like about it. For me, it would be to never move back home and call that home again.
For sure. That's one of them too. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on it. I agree with you on that.
That's funny because I know my mom probably shaking her head like, what? Why not? Like, what are you saying right now?
That's a fact.
Which I've had plenty of conversations with her, and she understands where I'm coming from with that. And it's all respect to my hometown. I love my hometown, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Like I used to, you know, at one point in my life, just not really like it, just due to whatever instances I was going through at that time in my life. But now sitting here, like, I appreciate everything that it's taught me. But that's not a place for me. I cannot envision growing as a person and doing the things like we're talking about right now, what we're going to get into in the episode, of building a legacy that is something greater than what my dad left for us in the family, that is something greater than what his dad left for them, bringing them over from Mexico. Like, it's got to keep growing, bro. And unfortunately, like, it's the expectation is going to keep getting higher and higher, but the only way to lean back on the faith of it is by doing the work. And I think you said it perfectly. All three of what we said and what we've talked about has been identified under one thing, and it's sacrifice. What are you sacrificing in this moment? I mean, bro, Thursdays and Fridays, I don't want to stay up late. Like, I really don't. Homie was over until what, like 10:30 last night? I think 10 o'clock. I stayed up till 1 a.m. putting together the episode notes, you know, editing some content that I need to edit, shooting a video. Like, I didn't want to. I didn't want to, but it's not about what I want. It's about the legacy and what I want to build and be able to tell my family at the end of the day. It's like, sometimes you got to do the hard things first. So that way, when you're, let's say 35, 40 years old, you can live, bro. Absolutely. You can really live. And that's one thing that life's taught me is like, it's not a ticking time bomb if you're doing something consistently every single day, you know? So
that's honest, man.
That's it. That was fun. I'm like, dang, bro, that's a good conversation. Let's just keep going. But all right, and we won't end on that like that. We'll give one last question to you two. I want to know from both of you, because I feel like there are certain things that I don't have experience in, or that I got to, in this case, go through early on in my life. But for both of you, like, what does it mean to hold a legacy? And do you feel like there's a type of pressure that comes with that based off of the background you guys have came from?
First, I would say, I think for me, it would be to build an actual stability in my family. It would build like something to be proud of. Like, I want to start seeing more people that I'm actually, and being around more people that I'm proud of them. I can look up to. Although God is the only one that you can really look up to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I really want to be proud of something that I've created, and I don't want anybody to struggle behind me. Whether if I was out there, I should have been working. I need to be working because I have a purpose and I have a goal, and I do want to stop the whole generational curse breaker thing. I hate when people throw that out there. I believe in it. I love what they do and with the meaning behind it. I get it, but it's like, don't be a victim. Get up.
Yeah,
go get that work done. Get up. Yeah. I just want to stick to that and be able to stay on that path.
Yeah,
and be accountable for that.
Love that.
Yeah, that's honest, bro. I think, well, for me, the pressure doesn't come from anywhere outside of just myself, and I think just being young, like we mentioned on one of the previous questions, there's just always been a desire and an urge to know, like, for one, that there's more out here, and that a lot of things just have to start with me. But that's an internal pressure. Yeah. I don't think certain things, and that's why I genuinely believe, like, well, for one, everything is a gift from God. Everything is a gift from God. But there are certain people that just have like an uncanny ability and really an unwavering just urge to like make it or be good or be great, or like it can't be taught. And it's like, well, where does that come from? Because you can see it in kids sometimes. And it's like, this child is, you were talking about your nephew.
Yeah.
Saying his cousin was his brother. How old is he?
4, bro.
4?
Yeah.
How could, you know what I mean? Like, where does he get that from?
Yeah.
That's innate. That's already there. So to answer the question, man, a lot of the pressures, they've come from myself, just young, environmentally, seeing certain things and just being like, nah, it has to start with me.
Yeah.
Like, but that's something that only somebody can put on themselves pressure-wise, and then start that journey of achieving, of going towards that. So for me, it's just always been a very personal thing internally to be like, nah, bro, it has to happen it has to start from me.
I believe that. I would agree with that too, because I'm sure you guys have been told that, by some teacher or mentor at some point in your life where it's like, bro, you're going to be great one day. Like, whether it's somebody that deals with you every day on a consistent basis, or it's somebody that's had one encounter with you, but they could just tell by the light in your heart. And, I've been told from teachers or a teacher before, like, you're going to do something great with your life if you keep doing the thing that you're doing, which is working. And I can't describe what that feeling is like. It's almost just like a conviction in your body and soul that God gave you a purpose to be great. Absolutely. And that's what it comes down to. And I think that's the easiest way to like show that or share that with anyone is you're going to be great. It's just how bad do you want to be great? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and not knowing what's going to come with that.
Not knowing.
Because that's it. When you see people and they have greatness, or you see people and you aspire to, not be like them, but you aspire to, you're influenced by what they're doing. The thing that's never spoken about is you don't know what they went through to get to that point, to have that light, you know what I mean? To have that bravado, to have that aura, to obtain the things. And that's it right there. It's like when you ask for greatness, when you pray for it, you're praying for things that you don't really know that you're gonna like. You're asking for suffering. You're asking for heartache. Yeah. You're asking to have to persevere. That's not what's spoken about. And I think that's something that should be spoken. When I think men understand that, men speak on that in regards to like, when you're praying and you're asking for certain things, beware. You're praying for suffering. You're praying for heartache. You're praying for pain, because to obtain that, like, yes, it's possible. And it's gonna happen.
There's a price,
but it's a price.
There's a price.
It's a price, and if you really want it, if you lose family members, you lose them. You lose friends. Like you might lose sleep. You might lose time. You might, there's a lot. Are you gonna be prepared to continue to persevere? This is what you said you wanted. This is what's gonna come. Are you still gonna persevere? And it's like, you see what you want, but you don't know this is what's going to happen before you get there.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's it right there. You know what I mean? It's like, if you really want it, you just have to be like, God, you're leading me. If this is what comes with it, it's in your hands. But this is what I want.
Yeah.
So if I have to go through this, all right, I surrender, I submit, but I have to this is what I have to go through.
Yeah.
If you genuinely want it. Now, some people are going to fold and quit. That's just a testament to, you really didn't want it for real. You lose that girl. You lose family members. You lose your friends. You know what I mean? You lose your spot. You lose your car. You lose your job. Do you still want it? You know what I mean? Like, do you still want it? And it's like, if you really do, if it's in your heart, it's going to happen. But you can't fold. Yep. And I think that's it right there. You just can't fold. You have to keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add before we close it out, Deshaun?
No, honestly, I agree. I just would add in, like, blind faith is tough.
Oh, for sure.
It's tough. When you come from a specific place and you always you want to know.
Persevering.
Sometimes you ain't going to know. And when the lights is
2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4. It's faith, bro. It is what it is.
Yeah.
No, but if you guys want to catch more on, this legacy talk and, growing as a man and growing in your manhood and what building a legacy looks like, be sure to catch episode 11 that's coming out tomorrow. And likewise, guys, much love. Appreciate you guys listening to the Hot Seat segment, and we'll catch you next week.
Love.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Keep Growing, the spot where resilience meets style. We're here to help young men like you walk through life with confidence, intention, and a plan for success. From life tips to fresh kicks, we've got the tools and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive. From where you are to where you're going, let's keep growing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the BHD studio. We're sitting here with Julian Robertson and my boy Deshaun. I'm Fabian Reyes, the BHD owner, the creator of the Keep Growing talk show, and very blessed to be sitting here on this Tuesday, which this is a Tuesday we're recording, guys. We switched it up a little bit coming off Memorial Day weekend, and looking at episode 11. First and foremost, we're here to talk about how to build a legacy. What does that look like? How, as young men, you can start building today as day one, and talk about the perceptions about what legacy could come off as meaning to an everyday average, guy in this case. We think of legacy a lot of times as something that you got to wait till a certain age point to start building, whether it's starting it with the family, starting it once you're in your career. But we're going to talk about how you can start building it as soon as you're 19, 20 years old, and the easiest ways that you can do that. So real quick, Julian, how was your Memorial Day weekend, bro? Did you do anything fun? What was it about?
Really just worked out. Slid to a pool party. Oh, West Coast vibes.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It was good though. Overall, it was good. How about you?
Okay. Similar. Not a pool party, but we hung out at the pool, Deshaun and I, and just got a good workout in and hung out with some really cool people, I would say. It was nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. But I think, having those moments to be able to decompress, coming off of a job or working, full time, it definitely opens up opportunities for you to do stuff like that. Mm. And I want to ask you this question to get this conversation started. Do you believe that you are on your path right now on building your legacy?
Yeah, I would say mindset wise, yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe there are things, and I know there are things that I'm working on, I'm working towards, but I believe everything starts from the mindset first.
Yeah.
And I believe, my mindset is very heavily on achieving aspirations that I have and wants and desires for legacy. Mm. So really, again, it starts with the mindset, and I believe my mindset for sure is on that path and on that route.
Got it. Okay. And now I'll ask you the question of, what does legacy mean to you? Like, what does that word hold to you in your heart?
For sure. Well, I think that's a very powerful word, legacy, because it's very nuanced. But when I think about overall what legacy means, I look at, like, in a lot of ways, who created the legacy.
Yeah.
Who created whatever is established, like whether it's a cornerstone of the family, the matriarch, or like, whomever that person is that created the legacy.
Yeah.
When somebody might speak to their great grandfather, their grandmother, great grandmother, that person that moved from a different country here or started something, or like who created that legacy. And of course it should be expounded on and continued, but who started that? Like who created that? That's what I think about when I think about legacy.
Yeah, I like your perspective on that, because it starts with one, and it always does. I think when you like we talked about it in the hot seat, you look at all these people that come from successful families that are still doing consistently successful things, you know, time and time again, generation after generation. There's no clue to who started it. It's always the present moment of who's doing it at that point in time. Absolutely. And I think we can get caught up in that, but we really got to look back to who was the first person to start that.
Yeah.
And there are a couple things that, and, you know, one that you did mention where, you know, we'll get into it a little bit later in the show, but the one that most applies to what we're talking about now is we don't talk about who the person started it was, because maybe it's irrelevant in this time period, but it has every effect and every meaning to what's going on in this very given moment, because if it didn't start with that person, it would be nothing.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
So legacy to me, I would say is it's something that you are setting yourself and your, you know, generations after up for success. I see legacy as success. I see legacy as consistent success in building something that wasn't already there beforehand, or, you know, continuing to build on something that was once, you know, maybe at a little lower of a level, and it's elevating from time to time. So that's how I view legacy. And I think the misconception that people have on legacy is that you got to wait for it. Like the challenge is, hold up, when you're 40, when you're 35, start building your legacy. And I don't think anyone talks to these young kids about everything you're doing in this given moment is adding or subtracting to the legacy that you could be building right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how does that make you feel?
Well, I think the earlier one can really grasp that reality, the better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things have to just happen through time, through situation, through experience, to really have an understanding of like, oh, okay, this is serious. Or let me start thinking about certain things that supersede myself.
Yeah.
It takes experiences, and I think that only life can present. But I think the earlier someone understands that and really starts activating that and working towards that, the better you can do as far as setting your life up and putting yourself in position. Yeah,
I agree with that. And I think the easiest things that I felt like I grew up with and that was instilled in me at a young age was initiative, the importance of how leadership impacts everything. And that showed up for me in sports. Like I can think of many sports that I showed up in, and I maybe wasn't the best one on the field, but I had the leadership aspect to be accountable for, in this case, when you're a quarterback, you got to take accountability for the whole offensive team that's out there, you know? And it's like, even though I didn't make a mistake, I had one of my, you know, running backs or receivers make a mistake. I had to go and be like, you know what? I didn't communicate that to them. So I learned that at a very young age, you know, 9th grade, 10th grade. And I think that helped me sit in the standpoint that I'm in right now, because I feel like that legacy started as early as 13 years old.
For sure.
So I do think, yes, it does come to a point to where you got to go through life things to be able to slowly start making your way into building in that journey. But I think there are areas probably in your life that you were doing that from the jump, grinding in sports, grinding in the classroom, making that solid choice to do something good compared to something that's going to negatively impact your life.
Yeah, a lot of things do start, and we speak about it so often, but a lot of things do literally, they replicate from sports.
Yeah.
Because sports it's really a replica of life in a lot of aspects. So those things, the mentalities that you know athletes have, the grit, the grind, the awareness, the accountability. A lot of times when you ask people who have gone on and done great things, where did you develop that from? It comes from a sports background. So I agree. I think the premise of it is the earlier one can understand that and really grasp it and really start to take heed to it and move forward within that, the better. But it's never too late. And once you grasp it, you just have to move forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, back to the success stories, like we see time and time again where some of these guys are starting at 35, 40, turning these startups around Fortune 500 startups in a year or two. I don't think time is the issue. I think it comes down to understanding the foundation of what your purpose and your calling is.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that's great is we had that conversation of, Big Sean and what I expressed to you, what I found out what success really means to him and really identifying with that. And it's not something that's concrete. It's a feeling. Yeah. It's like when you're aligned with that purpose and you're aligned with those goals. And that brings me to my next question that I want to get into with you is, do you find it when us guys are building their legacy, do you feel like there's a difference between chasing the attention in it or chasing the creative purpose and the driven impact in it?
That's a good question.
And how can that show up differently?
That's a really good question. I think it's all internal. So it's whichever the man's desires are or what he wants to project. And again, we're in this age of social media. So, you know, you can show whatever you want to show. But I think even in the midst of, like, let's say you show certain things, you don't show certain things can't be faked.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fake certain things.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, for example, like if you're really in the gym and you're working out and you're doing what you need to do, you can't fake how you're going to look. Your body is going to react to what you're doing. And whatever, like whether it's reading, whether it's locking in on a business, whatever it is, it can't be faked.
Yeah.
So regardless of what somebody shows or they don't show, I mean, and I'll just use this example, and I'm thinking of the gym because it's what's the first thing that I think about, and I'm not knocking the situation, but I think anybody who goes to the gym, we see, you know, you're working out and you see people like posing in front of the mirror, doing certain things, trying to get a certain look, you know, get the angles right. It's all good. It's all love. You can project something, you can display yourself in a certain manner. But when somebody gets up on you in person, they're going to actually see if you've been in the gym or not.
That's true.
And they're going to also see, like, yeah, you post a lot in the gym, but you're like creating angles and you're doing certain things. So it looks a certain way. Yeah, but when I see you in real life, it doesn't match up. And it's like certain things just can't be faked. So it's like either you're in the gym and you really want to like change your look and really look a certain way, whether just for health reasons, whatever. When people see you and your clothes are hitting you a certain way, you won't ever have to show that you've been in the gym. It'll just show like, you've been in the gym.
Yeah.
You've been in the gym. It can just be seen and people announce it like, damn, you look good. You've been in the gym. So that's why I say, regardless to what people show, if somebody's really putting action behind what they're doing, it's inevitable. It's going to be seen.
Yeah. No, that's a good point that you make. And I think it ties into the whole fact of what I believe is, sometimes what you're doing holds no weight compared to what the legacy that's being told by other people is doing or can do for you. And that's how I see legacy, bro, is I don't think legacy is ever talked about from the individual person that's building it. I think if we look back to like the Derek Jeters, the Allen Iversons, the Dwayne Wades, the Kobe Bryants, none of them were talking about how great they were.
Yeah,
none of them. Yeah. All they were doing was doing the thing and leaving and, you know, going to the interviews and whatnot, answering the questions, but they're leading by example.
Absolutely.
But everyone around them was like, bro, this guy was just building a legacy for his family and himself. They were really in here at 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. showing up before everyone else. They're the ones telling the testimony. And I think that weighs and holds way more value into a legacy than the guy that's, like you said, posing in the gym, getting that look. Of course, it's going to make you feel good in the moment, but when you actually come up to adversity or when you have someone come up to you, look to you man to man, and the light, and your full light, is it going to show or not? You know, and it's like, a lot of times it's not going to show. And social media is so scary in that because we can adjust so many things about our looks that it can come off as a facade.
It can, but that's the beauty of real life.
Yeah, for sure.
It can't be faked. It's like, you know, and that's the thing. It's like there are all these things that do create facades in any facet, business, looks, personalities. I'd say personalities too. You know, people project a certain personality. We're in the space of social media. And then you see them in real life, and it's like, dude, that's not how you operate. Yeah, you know what I mean. Has
not to cut you off? Like, bro. Has anyone told you before, after seeing your social media, that you act different or that you act the same based off of what they see you post or share?
Not really, because I don't really talk on my social media.
But like, you can still get a feeling after your pictures.
That's true. Honestly,
because you're looking fresh. You got the sunglasses on in some of them. You're doing your music video. You're doing thing with your music. That can almost come off a little. I know what you mean. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean. Yeah. I personally haven't. I think because if somebody were to like really, really look into it, it's not like I would use the word. It might seem like a big word, but self. I believe it's called self-aggrandizement. I forget the word, but it's basically like when you like. When like it's ego driven or it's like you're showing like it from like a super egotistical standpoint. That's never how I operate. So confidence, but people who understand confidence, they know when they see confidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know when you see cockiness, you know when you see like arrogance, but then you also know when you see confidence. But I've never had like I would imagine you to be like this because I've had it in person.
Oh, really?
I've told stories, about like walking into a situation.
Oh, there you go.
And somebody being like, you look like you. I'm sure you act like, or you feel like you're better than people. And it's like, well, what made you say that? Based on how I'm dressed or what I'm wearing? Like I gave off I didn't even speak. So it's been more in person things than like online things.
I find it more often than not in the times like looking back and doing like an overanalyzation of my life. The times that I was working off of ego and trying to put a facade onto my personality and ego, I never really got the people that were like, oh, you're acting different, or like, oh, I thought you'd be completely different, or that's coming from ego place. Yeah. I get it more now when I'm in my true confidence because I feel like true confidence scares people.
It does.
You know what I mean? I feel like people want to see us with
the
caption of like, just doing things out here. I'm really him, posting, flexing the bands on your arm. Like, I feel like people want to see that because that just makes sense. But when it comes to real confidence, it's scary for some people. And I've been told many times, like, dude, you come off kind of like,
I get what you mean.
Kind of scary in a sense, like intimidating. And I don't like that word and I don't ever play into it, but I very much analyze that and I'm like, why is that? And I'm thinking, no, I'm in my like most confident self, most truest self right now. And that's what people don't want to see.
That's very
They
true.
really don't. Not to hate on you, but they just don't feel comfortable with it.
And it's crazy you're mentioning this because I was thinking about this today, man, like literally before I was on my way over here.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is it's two things. But when you operate in a space of, again, confidence, because confidence can be seen. Other people that are confident will never say that. They'll never say. They'll be able to see it and they'll be like, yeah. But the main point that I wanted to say with that is when you're operating in a space of confidence like that and you're maneuvering in a certain way, a lot of times people want you to like dwindle it down for their insecurities, which is never okay. Now, are you supposed to be operating humility? Absolutely. Like being humble and operating in humility is necessary. Having said that, let's just use real tangible things. If you're in the gym, right? If you're working on your look, if you're working on yourself internally, if you're just working on your vibe, there is a level of, I'm working on myself. Why would I dwindle that? Why would I dwindle
Why would I hide
that?
it?
No, exactly. Why would I hide it? Now, humility has to kick in, of course. But why should I feel like I need to simmer this down for any reason?
Yeah.
Because people who are also doing the same thing are going to identify with it. It's not about the identification, but they'll be able to see that and be like, I like that. I like that. You know what I mean? I resonate with that. And it's needed.
Yeah.
It's needed. Yeah. So it's like people who are moving confidently, never dwindle yourself, because what you're doing is you're putting somebody who's telling you, don't do it, don't do that. You're putting them on a pedestal of being like, okay, I'm gonna bring it down. Why?
So everyone feels better about themselves.
No, you're literally dimming your light.
It's a Timo Cruz.
It's a Timo Cruz,
right
bro.
there.
It's Timo Cruz. You're dimming your light. Never do that.
No, I think that's huge too, because when we're talking about legacy, I find it so appealing because I'm very much a guy that likes to look good, play good, look good.
Absolutely.
You know, regardless of where you go. And we talked about it in the hot seat again of like, you like nice things.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to have a designer tag to it.
For sure.
It's just, you like what you like, and that's what makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
I think there's everything right with a legacy being portrayed as nice living, as nice presentation wise. Because let's be honest, we're tying, in this case, what good looks are to a confident man, and that's what's helping them build a successful legacy. I don't know many people that have legacies that don't look good.
Oh, they all
wholeheartedly.
look good.
That's what I'm saying. Wholeheartedly. And we can sit here and judge on the fact that like, oh, he looks too good. He shouldn't have that car if he was living off of humility. Well, what is it? Yeah, exactly. Says who? Says who?
Exactly.
Says who is, just because he has like you said, driving the Lambo in Scottsdale, and you're like, bro, that's a nice car. Like, good for you. Who says that dude's not a good man?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't take away from the fact that he likes what he likes, and he's spending money on things because at the end of the day, he's building a legacy for somebody or himself or his family to make it attainable for the ones coming up behind him. I don't ever see people like that as they're doing it selfishly for them, because somebody that has a true legacy, it's not about them.
And within legacy is abundance.
It's abundance. I caught it, bro. Oh my gosh.
You got to stretch it out. It happens like that, man.
I caught it, bro. No, we're good.
But abundance is part of that, man.
Yeah,
like abundance is part of legacy. Like, when do you look at anybody who you have admiration for and they don't have anything?
Yep.
That's never the case. When we look to people that we have admiration for, it's because they have ththings that we like.
Yeah.
And that's in abundance. Now, who you are as a person is different in regards to how that ties within somebody. But it's like, nah, man, there's a misconception of you're supposed to just be like meek and timid.
You don't got to be frugal and have a legacy.
Yeah,
That's not the only way to go about it, to be successful and to be presentable in the eyes of the public. You know, we need to get away from that type of
of course, I agree, because that's why humility has to be on the forefront.
Yeah.
But confidence is needed. And for you mentioned, a term when people say like, I'm him. Okay, there are people that look good. We're handsome men. You might think you're him because you're handsome. Okay, you dress nice. All right, that's cool. I get all that. But from a self standpoint, when I think about it, I think about the accomplishments, the things I've had to overcome by myself. You know what I mean?
Facts.
Things like,
I like
that.
Yeah.
So when a dude's saying he's him or certain things like that, if he's coming from a real internal space, at least from a self standpoint, I'm thinking about things I've had to overcome by myself, figuring it out, persevering. You should feel like you're him. You should definitely feel like you're him. And it might look like you have a chip on your shoulder, but it's when you reflect on, it's never to compare pain or anything like that. That's not what it's about. Sure. But when you think like what you've been through, and man, what I've been through, I'm not saying me, but also me, but when guys think what I've been through would have probably broke most people. And you persevered, and you've become, and you've excelled, and you figured it out. You should absolutely 1000% feel like you're him. You should.
Yeah.
Now, how you project that's another thing. But along with your look, along with dressing a certain way, along with personality, you should feel like you're him. Why should you not?
Yeah, it starts with you first.
You should feel like that.
It does.
And that's why I say confident people. I don't see other great athletes saying Floyd Mayweather's cocky.
That's true.
I've never heard other great athletes say Kobe Bryant, rest in peace to Kobe, my favorite player of all time. I've never seen other great players say Kobe was cocky. They might have said he had. They understood what he had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They understood it. Now, whether people want to acknowledge certain things or not, greats understand it. Mike's never said Kobe was cocky. Michael Jordan's never once ever said that. And those are the two most comparable like basketball players that people always, put a line to each other.
For sure.
So it's like, nah, man, people who understand. You know what I mean? From a confidence standpoint, from just a grit, people get it. People understand it. Who understand it truthfully, they get it.
I think you got to look at, for sure, like from a whole perspective of where it's coming from and where it's being pulled from. Because, if you're, like you talked about, if it's coming from like a I'm him perspective, it needs to start with internal.
Absolutely.
Like a legacy can only start with internal self first.
Exactly.
And knowing and building and growing and working. I don't see a lot of guys that have legacies that are just being loud. Being loud and saying, I'm him, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Because it doesn't stick that well.
It can't be surface.
Exactly. And I don't think it's moving to any type of waves that are going to be impactful for people to just really be like, oh, yeah, like he's really doing that thing. And that's why I think like it all aligns to just being intentional for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like making sure that you're understanding like every move that I'm making is for this reason why.
Yeah.
And then you have some of them that I will say, like, I'm not a huge Mayweather fan, but I think the intentionality behind the work that he puts in is making him his legacy great.
For sure.
Now, when it gets a little bit outside of the realm is depending on how you perceive certain tangible things like money.
Absolutely.
A lot of these athletes, they see money very differently compared to a guy that's building a legacy outside in a job environment. Yeah. They handle their money a lot differently and they're not out there flexing the bands. And maybe that's part of the entourage. Who knows? I don't have money like that. I don't know how I would be acting. I would hope it would be, in a manner that's true to me.
For sure.
And who's to say that's not true to Mayweather? You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
I won't
really
exactly.
Him.
And just because it's not true to yourself, you cannot like it. Like I don't like the way he shows off his money, but I respect the grind that he has. I respect the track record that dude's done. He's an athlete.
Absolutely.
He's really him.
Yeah.
But back to the whole thing of like legacy has to come from the inside. And I think a lot of guys that are in their moment of, I'm building my legacy, I'm going to start being a rapper, I'm going to start a podcast, I'm going to start my own brand, I'm going to be a musician. I think too much of it is focused on outward rather than, hey, let me just dial that energy back and really dial in on the task at hand. Give up some certain things. Like you talked about, you had to give up real things in your life, man. Like you really had to sit there in the dark alone probably and just go through it just so that way you could be here, which obviously you're still going in, but your legacy's already started for sure. So, you know, talk to me a little bit about that and what that looks like for you, because we can talk about the candies and rainbows all day, but I think the real thing that matters the most is those moments of darkness. Absolutely. And those moments of sacrifice. And you said it perfectly on the hot seat. Yeah. You ask for prayer to be great, to have legacy, but really you're asking for suffering.
Yeah, man. I think, you know, just in this realm of conversation, if you were to ask anybody, whomever, anyone, any all three of us, if we were to ask somebody, you know, who we look to at admiration, you know, what drives you or what drove you?
Yes.
I could almost guarantee it comes from a dark place. It comes from hurt. It comes from pain. It comes from trauma. It comes from, and I say this in a motivational way. Success does not come from a happy place. You really think about it.
No, I like when you say that. Every time you say it, I like when you say it.
Success does not come from a happy place, man. And I say that in a motivational way, because if you were to ask a neurosurgeon, if you were to ask an NBA player, MLB player, football player, a business owner, Fortune 500, like whomever, what drives you or what has you in this in a good way, this beast mentality of just constantly persevering, constantly going. Lost a parent when I was young, or I was abandoned when I was a kid, or I remember looking in my refrigerator and there wasn't anything there, or I couldn't read when I was this age and they used to tease. It's from pain. Yeah. It's from pain. If somebody's going to be very, very honest, usually it's from a place of pain, and then it's like a click, and it's like, nah, that's where steam rose from. So I believe genuinely, like if you turn your pain into prosperity, greatness can happen. But usually most things of greatness they blossom from pain. Yeah. But you have to understand it's part of it. Like you said earlier, it's the price that has to be paid for it. When you look at people in their stories of magnificent greatness stories, bro, they're not pretty stories. Nah. They're hard, tough like they're extreme stories. The only thing usually that's linear with everybody who makes it is perseverance. You'll hear
everything.
I don't know how. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just.
Some don't even know how they did it.
They don't know.
No, they were just in the mode. Yeah, they were in that mode.
Persevered. That's it. Somebody came into their life. A blessing happened. A miracle happened. All they did was persevere. Yep. But when you look at a lot of great people's stories, it's filled with pain. It's filled with trials and tribulations. Even when we look at like one of my favorite movies is 300, Leonidas. Pain. From a kid, pain. Like, you know, when you look at just stories of warriors, and it's all pain, bro. So I think genuinely, like, once people understand if you're looking towards greatness, you have to relish in that pain, honestly.
Yeah, and I think you got to harness it for sure.
That's a great word. You have to harness it.
I think we've talked about in previous episodes and in the podcast for sure about how that pain can show up in different ways. You know, you got players that are, you got people that are doing their thing and they're just workaholics. Yeah. And they're like, I'm working off pain. I'm working off this. Yeah. And it doesn't always show up in the manner that they want to show up, because then you forget the love behind it.
No, for sure.
You know, because pain is one of the biggest essential ones that a lot of people will say, like, where does this drive come from? And you're pulling from a different place for a lot of people. Yeah. But I think there is another place that is a lot of it's love, bro. Like you really got to enjoy who you are and what you're doing as a person to continue day in, day out, year in, generation after generation to build that legacy. And as much as pain is, it's probably the front seat driver on that, there's definitely a passenger side. And I would say love is up there just as much, because finally when you get over that pain, it's almost, substituted with a little bit of love and care behind it. Absolutely. And then I feel like it just shifts gears into, just scaling whatever it is that you're doing because of the fact that you said, you know, at one point it was really dark. It was really, you know, sad in a sense. But once you persevered and got through it, you saw the love in it. And then it was just, again, transitioning into that next season of, you know, this is what it's pushing me to do now.
Absolutely.
And it's always going to be perseverance amongst everything. But now I can manage the anger. I can manage the hurt. I can manage the love. And I think one issue with, you know, us guys is we don't know how to manage a lot of those emotions.
Yeah.
We don't know how to tunnel that and fuel it into the right driver. And, you know, some of us will take it out on loved ones. Some of us will take it out on, you know, drugs, alcohol, whatever it looks like. But there's ones, like you said, just like yourself, like Deshaun was describing. I mean, I went through a different type of pain, but, you know, it's still pain. And we all did it in an actionable way.
Absolutely.
We all made it a purpose of, look, I don't want this legacy to be my legacy. It's going to be better. And I'm going to do this and hold myself accountable to make it better.
And that's the why. There has to be a why. And I think the why is in conjunction with the love.
Yeah.
Because the why has to be like, why am I doing this? Why, like how you said, you're editing, you're up late, you're doing these things. The love is involved in it. You love doing it. But sometimes you just don't want, like we love working out. You don't want to hit the gym all the time.
No, for sure.
But why do you hit the gym even on the days you don't? Because there's a why. The why is you want to look a certain way. The why is you want to be healthy. The why is you want to retain your youthfulness. So there has to be the why. And a lot of times the why is linear to the love, but the why has to be there. Because even when there's love involved, we love playing sports. You don't want to practice every day or every other day.
No way.
You just don't want to. But there has to be a reason for why you do it. And the why is extremely big.
And the why is big. The third one I would say is principle.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the principle of the doing is not always, it's not always transactional, but when you look at the end of the day, it's like it builds you who you are.
Yeah.
You're so consistent in this case with, like you said, your push-ups and sit-ups every night.
Yeah.
Bro, there's probably times where you're just like, you just do it naturally and you're not even thinking about it. And you're like, it's the principle of the lifestyle that you built for yourself. So that way, you know, and understand, like, this is how I function in my day to day. If I don't do this,
you'll feel it.
You feel it.
Muscle memory.
Yeah,
everything.
you feel it.
Yeah.
And it takes over it takes over the emotional state. It takes over the physical being state. And I just think there's something, like I said, bro, I always say this time and time again, there's something attractive about a dude that just lives a principled life that literally shows up in a crowd full of people and he's just wearing the most simple fit, but he looks good.
You can see it.
He smells good. He walks good. Like, and you end up, you know, hey, sir, I just want to know, like, what is it that you do? Oh, bro, I have a few companies, you know.
Yeah.
My kids are up for success. I have 2 kids graduating college. I have this. I have that. I have a wife who loves me. Like that's a legacy, bro.
No, for sure. No,
it doesn't have to be a business, you know. I think every man, and this is getting off on a tangent, but like I think every man should have a legacy. And if you're not building a legacy, I do not think you're worthy of having a woman in your life that can be the woman that you want.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Because it's a strong lack.
It's a lack.
Strong lack. Yeah.
How are we supposed to be the ones to lean on and provide? We're not going to get into details, but just be a provider.
Yeah.
If you can't have a legacy.
Yeah, if the mindset's not there. No, I agree.
What do you build? Like if kids are in the picture, you know, what do you amount to that? Like like you said, I think you or Deshaun said it perfect. It has to start with me.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's a very nuanced conversation, and we're going along with what you said. I think, again, when you look at people that have just been through, especially men who have done great things, had a life full of pain, they're usually, if they understand it, the most genuine people.
If they understand it,
that's why I say if they understand it, if they have a profound understanding, because now, if you're operating in a space where if you've been through a lot of pain and you're just projecting and doing a whole bunch, like it's like, all right, I understand where the root of it's coming from, but a certain man of a certain caliber, when you look at esteemed men who have, like you said, he's dressed a certain way, he's in a space to where it's like, yeah, you're dressed very simple, but you have a real aura, like a real aura. Where does that come from? That's harnessed. Something is being harnessed. It's usually they're usually very nice. I don't want to say they're good men.
Yeah.
So they're good in the sense of, we could say maybe the things appear to be nice, but they're good.
Yeah.
Because if you've been through a lot of pain, you're not really trying to project it or speak about it. You're not, because you understand what it is. So now you understand the balance of, let me disseminate love. Let me disseminate kindness, because I know what this is. I know what this is. So that's why I say there's a certain caliber of man that if he's been through a lot of pain, when you look at, let's say, sergeants, when you look at warriors, when you look at like
special ops.
Exactly. Special ops. These are the most capable men, if we want to be very honest, in a physical way.
Yeah, man.
Very, very in a violent way.
Yeah.
They're usually the most kind. They're usually the most pleasant. They're chill. They're relaxed because pain has already been established. There's an understanding of the pain. We don't need to project that.
No.
We know what that is. So I think truthfully, and I'm going to send you all a clip. I have a clip. There's a clip of like a guy talking about pain, but I think men, well, guys, young to older, once you really understand, your life is going to be a life of pain. If you expect to be a good man, if you expect to want to achieve certain things in life, understand that you're going to have a life of pain. It's going to be a life of pain. It's just how are you going to deal with it. That's why having a brotherhood is essential. That's a core group of brothers is essential. That's why hitting the gym is important. That's why reading is important. That's why praying is important. That's why these things are important because it's inevitable and you can't run from it and you can't dilute and divert to other things because what that will create is habits. When you try to run from the pain,
that's where to go.
It'll create secular habits. And not saying we can all fall short and I understand that. But if you want to like get away from the pain and go to the easiness of it, you'll constantly be reflecting to habits that it's not beneficial. You have to resonate and work within the pain. That's the only way to grow and develop. And when you see men that have a certain aura, they're working within that pain. They're working within it. They're not running from it. You can't run from it. There's no way, or else it'll just be constantly seeking out, you know what I mean, just habits.
That's where I was going to go with next, which is funny that you talk about that because, you know, consistent habits is what, you know, also builds this legacy thing. And like you mentioned, you can have habits that are coming from a place of victimized mentalities, which is like, oh, well, this was a tough day. So, you know, I usually do this, so I'm going to do this, you know, or I'm going to drink my feelings away, or it's just one of those days, or it's my 10-year anniversary of, you know, losing a loved one or my divorce or whatever. And by all means, like you said, we're all going to fall short at some point.
For sure,
but at some point, you got to get to a point to where that doesn't feel good anymore. That habit doesn't feel good, and you have a little bit of shame, which I will share. Like, I think there is a good in shame. I think there is a good way to look at having a little bit of shame in your life. So that way you can make a decision of, hey, I can't do that shit again. But nah, bro, I think everything that you said was perfect. And I think the alignment of a legacy being built starts with a man that can understand the temperament of the actions that he's doing and understand the pool that he's coming from. You know, we can easily, like you said, trauma bonding. We've talked about trauma bonding and how that is just a really bad thing to do when it comes to anyone. But I think it's just so easy when you come across someone that can relate to those types of, you know, negative aspects in your life. And time and place for everything. But I think for a man that's on his purpose, it's almost like I'm not trying to put words in people's mouth based off of the hurt they've been through, but from the ones that I've seen, it's like, I'm kind of blessed that I went through that. You know what I mean? Like
genuinely. Well said.
And
that's well said.
And I think like I said, I've heard it not in those terms from you, but like I feel it in the way you guys have talked about it and the way I've heard it from other people. And I feel that. I'm like, I can feel like you're blessed by that. Like I can really feel that, like, oh wow, like that's made you feel a type of way in a good way. So that way you can be on your path to do what it is you're doing now. So,
and that's a great assessment, bro. But that comes from, like, when I was saying, if a man, if we're speaking on men, if they have an understanding of harnessing what that is, because what's the adverse? If we go through all these things and we don't understand, like, there's prosperity that can come from our pain. If you don't have that understanding and wherewithal, now you're aggressive towards everybody. Now you're projecting. Now you're mad. Now you're just taking it out on everybody. Now you're not hitting the gym. You're not reading. You're just and I get why men are like that. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But when you understand, like, the things that you've gone through, it's a blessing from God. Like, especially if it's things that you couldn't control and it just happened in your life, because greater is to come from that. If you harness that, if you utilize that as fuel, greatness is to come from that. But if it's a constant victimization of, or victim mindset of, why did that happen to me? Sometimes that's normal to be like, okay, dang, why that happened?
That's where the brotherhood comes in. It's like, bro, you're good. We got you. Like, that's you're fine. Let's go. Keep going.
Exactly. You know, and it's okay. It's normal as humans for us to do that. But to live in that, nah. At a certain point, it has to be like, all right, that happened. Let me lock in. Let me make something. You're already, like Dr. Eric Thomas said, you're already in pain. Do something about it. You're already in pain.
That should be like a prerequisite for anyone that's like looking to be and live a legacy, man. Is just watching Eric Thomas's that specific one where he's talking exactly about pain.
You're already feeling it. Reap something from it. You already are going, and that's why we've had cameras off, to where it's like, bro, it's probably going to be the best thing that ever happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be the best. And speaking from personally, we don't have to disclose that on the camera.
That's true. I remember
that.
But
it's like, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me personally.
Yes.
One of the best things. And it's going to be like that for you too, because it's like, nah, okay, watch this. Watch this. You know what I mean? And it's only greatness that can come from it. There's only two things that can happen. Somebody could either divert or go further. So it's like, nah, it's gonna be the best thing, and that's how it has to be used.
Yeah,
and everything like, oh, watch what I do now. Watch this level up. Watch what, like, man, it's only that's it. That's it, bro.
It gives you goosebumps, bro, when you think about it.
When you really go through, you know it.
Yes, and you look back and, like I said, just looking out the window after, this evening, and I'll look out the window, I'm like, dang, bro, I'm just seeing the journey that I've been through, and it gives it really. You got to keep going. Exactly. There's more to come, and then there's, like you said, more pain, or more in this case adversity to go through. Everyone's pain looks different, but I do like the fact that you said that, bro, because I'll remember it for the rest of my life, and I want to give the honest truth to people about like guys living in their vulnerable state with other guys of like. Bro, there's a power to letting a homie know when you're building a legacy when you're not doing okay. And I remember one time he came over, not to get into specifics, but like you came over to the old place and you're like, bro, like, how's it going? Like, you seen some stuff, like everything was starting to transition and everything. And like, how you feeling about it? I'm like, honestly, bro, I'm scared. Like, and we had that conversation and you were just like, bro, it's going to be all right.
Absolutely.
Like, it's going to be a good thing. And that was so powerful for me because I needed to hear something like that, in whatever version. And I was open enough to be able to be vulnerable with you in that moment and just have that conversation we did shortly before we got into it. But it was very inspiring and motivating to hear that from somebody. And I think, like I said, I'll always stress it as a man and as men and as young men, because we are young and we will always be young. Like you always talk about,
bro.
We got to keep being vulnerable with each other, so that way when it shows up, when that time shows up to where we're just not doing good and we're living in the pain and we just want to react, we want to be, we want to do something negative, it shows out of love.
You need brotherhood.
Exactly. And I appreciate you for that, bro. Honestly.
Come on now, absolutely.
Before we get closed out right here, I want to ask Julian one last question, like I always do before we end out the segment. Julian, for your legacy right now, what is one thing that you're grateful that you're doing based off of the previous experiences that you've had to kind of pull from?
For sure. In regards to legacy now, that's a really good question, man. I think from me moving forward, one of the big things that I want to strive for in regards to my legacy is operating in, like, of course, loyalty, but just like real, genuine love.
Okay.
And I know that might just seem very vague, but I think when you think about having a family or having kids or having a situation, like your children understanding, like no matter what happens, you all stick together. Like there's like, it doesn't matter, whatever happens, like it's like you all are your family.
There
like,
you go.
Like this love, it should be unwavering. And I think that those things are innate with certain people, but I think the teaching of love, the teaching of like, hey, look, I don't care what happens. You stick up for your sister. You stick up for your brother. Like nobody plays with you. Like that has to be taught, and that just continues because there's going to be things that happen in life. You know what I mean? There's so many so many variables that we just don't know about. But when somebody understands, like if we're somewhere, all three of us are somewhere, bro. If somebody looks crazy, if somebody looks at you crazy, it's going to be on point. Like, you know what I mean? That's how you're supposed to operate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With people who you care or love about, like certain people have to be taught it. Some people have it naturally. But when that's a thing, that just keeps steamrolling. Like, you know what I mean? It keep like your people can't be played with. So I think for me, it's unwavering. I know we've been using the word unwavering.
No, it's a good word.
Love, like love to where it's like, nah, no matter what happens, you got to stick together. Like
through everything,
no matter what. It's family. So yeah, it'll just be real, genuine love.
I like that, man. I think loyalty from what we've talked about was like the first and foremost thing that we need to do as men. And that shows up just like you said, when something happens to a family member, there needs to be a cause and effect of like, look, we don't do that around here. And as a brother or sister, as a wife, like we all got to work and operate off of one meaning, one purpose, and one, one branded loyalty of just being together as a foundation. So, man, appreciate your time.
God, love, bro. Absolutely.
Shout out to everyone out there. Guys, please make sure that you're watching every episode and catching the hot seat that comes out a day before the episode comes out. So I can't wait for you guys to enjoy, what legacy means to us and how you can build it. So we'll catch you next week.